How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. Today we got another Baldurs Gate 3 video for you because I want to talk about a certain class, a multi-class that doesn't really get a lot of love. A multi-class that I think a lot of people are overlooking and in my opinion is one of the most fun ways to play Baldurs Gate 3. That's right, today we're talking about the Shadow Monk Rogue multi-class build. Monk is one of my favorite classes to play in D&D in Baldur's Gate, and it's really cool because the folks over at Larian actually gave the Monk a few buffs from Dungeons & Dragons 5e, namely how Monk proficient weapons work, but we're gonna get into that later. So now you might be asking yourself, why would I want to play this build? Well, besides the fact that it's one of the most fun builds that I think that you can play in the game, the idea is really simple. We are combining the mobility and survivability of the Monk with the sneak attack and the flexibility that we get of the Rogue to make a completely super fun, crazy mobile ninja hybrid build. The breakdown of the build is pretty simple. We're taking 9 levels in Monk with the Shadow Monk subclass, with 3 levels in Rogue and the Thief subclass. Now, you might be asking yourself, why are we taking the Thief subclass? Don't worry, we're going to get into that, but first, let's talk about the Monk. Solarian did some cool stuff with the Monk in Baldur's Gate 3. Primarily what they did with Monk weapon proficiencies. So in this game, a Monk weapon is any weapon in which the Monk is proficient in. Obviously, we can see with our weapon proficiencies here, if you start with level 1 in Monk, you get simple weapons, short swords, long swords, long bows, and short bows. However, if we get proficiency with these other martial weapons or other weapons through other means, whether it's through class upgrades, backgrounds, race, or just other multi-classes, we can actually use those weapons and they count as Monk weapons. So let's talk about the Monk's whole deal, their main thing, which is their key, their class resource, which allows them to do class actions mainly on bonus actions by spending this resource. So at the first level of Monk, we get access to Flurry of Blows, which when spending a key point allows us to basically use our bonus action to make a flurry of unarmed strikes, which is very good because as a Monk, we actually get a dex bonus to our unarmed strike, as well as several other bonuses that we're going to get as we get more levels. But it isn't until we start getting some levels in the Monk class that things really start to come together with our key. At level 2, we get access to Patient Defense, Step of the Wind, and Disengage. Now, Patience Defense, in my opinion, is the most important of these abilities that we're getting right here. This allows us to spend a key point to use our bonus action to give disadvantage on all enemies trying to attack us that turn, which allows us to be very high survivability. You combine this with the fact that as a Monk, we get unarmored defense, so our AC, our armor class scales on our dex. Dex is going to be very important. So hypothetically, you could have an 18 dex and you have an 18 armor class. As well, you see we have Step of the Wind, which gives us bonus action dash and bonus action disengage for spending a key point. But we're actually not going to use these very much once we get more levels, specifically our levels in Rogue, but we're going to come back to that. Next, once you get to level 3 in Monk, we're going to take the Way of the Shadow Monk class. Now, you could take the Way of the Open Hand. It's really not going to affect a bunch of how you play, but the Way of the Shadow kind of synergizes more. You get more utility things that synergize with kind of your Rogue hiding combo skills. So for the flavor, we're going to take that, and for another ability that we're going to get later on, which I will touch on. So you can see here we get Shadow Art's Hide, which is a bonus action hide, which is pretty nice, kind of like the Rogue. We also get Pass Without a Traits once per long rest. This is very nice when we're going on sneaking missions. We also get Darkness. We can cast a Darkness spell around us to help you get out of sticky situations, as well as you can give Dark Vision to an ally or yourself. And we also get access to Silence. This is also very nice because it allows us to get into melee with wizards, and we don't have to worry about them casting any pesky spells on us. Next, we get to level 4, and we get to choose one of our feats. Now, most people would probably pick Tavern Brawler here, and I would probably tell them to as well, because it allows you to add your bonus twice to your unarmed attacks, and we will be doing unarmed attacks. At the very least, we will be doing them on our bonus action or through Flurry of Blows, also on our bonus action. If you want to go completely overboard on the mobility in this build, because it already is going to give you crazy mobility, you're going to have more movement speed than like anyone in the game, like by far, but if you want to make it even crazier, you can take the mobile feat, which gives you a movement speed increase as well. When we dash over difficult terrain, it doesn't affect us, and because we can bonus action dash, this is actually pretty nice for us as well. We also don't no longer provoke opportunity attacks from our target, which is also really nice because it allows us to move very effortlessly throughout the battlefield, and we don't have to worry about getting hit by opportunity attacks. So mobile, I think, is also really nice if you don't want to go the Tavern Brawler approach. As well, if you want or you need to be able to get proficiency in more weapons, you can choose Weapon Master, which gives us a +1 in our dex, as well as we can get proficiency up to 4 weapons. Now, why would you do this, you might ask? Well, like we said earlier, any weapon that the Monk is proficient in becomes a monk weapon, basically. So, hypothetically, we could use a polearm, or hypothetically, we could use a rapier or a scimitar to finesse weapons, which are going to combine really well with our 3 levels in Rogue that we're going to talk about. Any of these options really work. At the end of the day, this build is really flexible, and it kind of just depends on how you want to play. So I highly encourage messing around with it in terms of like what kind of weapons you want to use. We're going to talk about what kind of gear you're going to use later on in the video. There'll be a timestamp below, so if you ever want to skip to that part, feel free to do so. Next, at level 5, we get access to our additional key points and extra attack, which is also really nice. We also get access to our stunning strike, which possibly stuns the target at the cost of a key point, which is really, really nice. One of the most biggest utility things on Monk. It's also going to help us get advantage for potential sneak attack shenanigans, which is also really nice. And we get access to Cloak of Shadows because we are a Shadow Monk, which gives ourselves basically free invisibility once prolonged rest, right? Next, at level 6 for the Way of the Shadow Monk, we get access to Shadow Step, which is kind of the core main flashy ability that we have as the Way of the Shadow Monk. Basically, this ability allows us to teleport from a shadow to another shadow, and then we get advantage on our next melee attack, giving us kind of a combo here with sneak attack, which we're going to talk about once we get to our rogue levels. Now, here's the thing, though. This ability is pretty good, but the only problem is it can only be used in like half-light or completely obscured shadow, and there's plenty of points in the game where this shadow is just not there. You can do your best to kind of create it through darkness spells or through kind of removal of different light sources, but you're not always going to be able to use this, even though when you do get to use it, it's absolutely crazy, and you can kind of manufacture ways to use it. Just to note, this is a good ability, but it's not as OP or as busted as it potentially could have been. So next, we're talking about our 3 levels in Rogue here. At level 1, we get access to our sneak attack, where we get an extra damage die whenever we have advantage against the target. This is one of the main synergy points here between the Shadow Monk and the Rogue here, in that the ability to hide and then get advantage on targets to do sneak attack damage. The only issue here is that we have to use a finesse weapon, but you can see here that we get proficiency with rapiers when you get your level in Rogue, and rapiers are pretty much the best finesse weapons in this game, at least as far as melee goes. Really between that and scimitars, but rapiers are basically the best finesse weapon, and we need a finesse weapon to proc sneak attack. So hypothetically, you're going to be using a rapier, we'll just say, for this sneak attack option. Next up, at the second level of Rogue, we get access to our cunning actions. Now, this is what we really want. Now, this is going to seem really similar to what we just got with our Shadow Monk. We have hide, dash, and disengage, all as bonus action cunning actions that you can do. Now, you might be wondering, why do we need those if we just got those from our levels in Monk? But the thing is, these don't cost any resource. The Step of the Wind action on the Monk costs 1 key point. So with this, we can use a bonus action for free to disengage, dash, or hide to get ourselves advantage. Now, we combine this with level 3 Rogue, where we are taking the Thief subclass. The reason we're taking the Thief subclass is for this right here, the Fast Hands ability, which really ties everything all together here. Fast Hands gives us an extra bonus action. So hypothetically, this means you could bonus action hide, walk up to an enemy, hit once with advantage for sneak attack, hit again with your second attack, and then you could bonus action flurry of blows to hit them 3 more times. This is just one of many options you can do with this, but there's so many things between the Monk and the Rogue that you can do on your bonus action, so having access to 2 bonus actions is actually super insane. You combine this with just how mobile this character is, even if you don't take the mobile feat, your ability to get around the battlefield with your cunning action dashes and your ability to jump, as well as to shadow step and basically teleport all around the battlefield, makes it to where you're really, really hard to deal with. You put this together with bonus action patient defense with the Monk ability, as well as stunning strike, and you're really, really hard to deal with. You're basically an off tank because your AC is going to be high because you have high dex, and you combine that with other abilities that make you just hard to deal with and make you a nuisance, and it's an absolutely hilarious, fun build. So next up, we have the races. So the nice thing about this build is that you can really do it with any race if you wanted to. It just depends on how much you want to min-max. Honestly, any race that gives you a dex bonus, whether that's elf, half-elf, drow, if you have a dex bonus with night vision, you're gonna be good. Other fun options are Githyanki, because Githyanki is just a really, really good race in this game. Honestly, it's probably the best race. Access to basically free Misty Step along with a free invisible mage hand is really, really good. Half Orc is also really fun because like Relentless Endurance shenanigans as well. You could also play Dragonborn for breath weapon shenanigans. Honestly, any class really works with this, but personally, I went with the Drow. The other reason why we're taking these levels in Rogue, besides with all of the reasons I just listed now, is because the Rogues give us access to a bunch of skill proficiencies that we wouldn't otherwise get, making your character really kind of a jack of all trades and able to do just a lot of stuff. You combine this with backgrounds, and a lot of backgrounds are pretty viable here. Honestly, any of them that give you stealth, whether that's criminal or something like Urchin, sleight of hand and stealth proficiency are really, really good, or deception and stealth proficiency are also pretty good. Though I would definitely say take one of the stealth proficiency ones just to make sure that you get that fatty stealth bonus. Okay, now we're on to gear. So as far as gear goes, there's a lot of gear in this game that help make this class really shine and help it do really well. There's tons of gear in this game that synergize with movement or dash abilities, giving you a buff if you take a dash action that turn, as well as there's tons of weapons and things which gives you bonuses on your unarmed strikes as well, which help kind of synergize really well with this build. And like I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to use a finesse weapon with this class. If you want to forego the sneak attack shenanigans altogether, you don't have to use a finesse weapon. While the sneak attack damage is good, you can also use your bonus action for other things besides trying to constantly hide and get sneak attack. You can just forego the finesse weapon altogether and either one, use your hands, two, use a quarterstaff, because there's tons of really good quarterstaffs that are really good synergizing with this build as far as giving extra different types of damage. Or you could even go crazy and get like Halberd's proficiency and use a halberd, because that technically counts as a monk weapon as long as you are proficient with it. Honestly, whatever weapon you get and you want to use, as long as you can figure out how to get proficiency with it, you can use it. And if you don't mind foregoing the sneak attack damage and not using a finesse weapon, then it's perfectly fine. The sneak attack damage is good, but because we only have 3 levels in Rogue, it's not going to be super insane, especially once we get into the later levels. So it really just depends on how you want to play. And yes, this was my crazy Shadow Monk Rogue multi-class ninja build. Like I said, this build is really flexible. You can kind of play it however you want to play it. This is just the way that I was playing it. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below other monk multi-class builds or just other builds that you enjoy playing. Click on screen now for more content. And as always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, adu.